Most people don't go for it because they're scared of it. Everybody could go for it. Anybody has it in them. It's just a matter of whether or not they're willing to put in the sweat and tears.
Hey Josh.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Solo to CEO podcast. We're sitting here with Josh Mizrahi here in Toms River. Tell me, what do you do?
I print t-shirts.
Awesome. Miz Promos. Tell me a bit about it. What do you do specifically? Who do you work for?
We generally work for the promotional and advertising industry, and we print promotional content on t-shirts, whether it's companies' logos or events or anything in between.
So primarily you do corporate work. You work for companies and organizations?
Yes, pretty much. We focus on the wholesale end of the production part of the industry.
So you don't have to deal with 1,000 annoying clients.
Right. So we find the brokers, or they find us, whichever comes first. And we try to focus on quality service, quality work, and try to give them the best experience they could have.
Attaboy. So tell me, how'd you get into this? How'd this all start? How far back are we dating?
I'm not even sure.
30 years ago. You're like, how old do you think I am?
I tripped and fell. Found myself on top of a t-shirt, and I'm like, hey, I can make this. It was something similar to that, though. It was more of a dream of some teenagers that thought that we could make a big business out of printing funny sayings on t-shirts, and that's how we started.
And that lasted?
It lasted a pretty long time.
That was MGRTs, right?
Yes, pretty long time. We did it for about 7 years.
I still have your Post-it notes from when you shut it down.
Yeah, we tried doing all kinds of self-promos. No, it was pretty good. We had some fun times. You know, everything comes to an end. You know, we learned a lot. We made a lot of mistakes. We made a lot of successful things. And
everyone moved in different directions.
We moved in different directions, and this is where we are now. We all have our own things going on, and thankfully, we all are where we are.
So after you left MGRTs, what happened?
I took a job somewhere in another print shop, a different style printing. Obviously, you know, they were not catering to the retail one-offs, mom and pops community, and that's really where I wanted to bring the MGRTs at the time, but I didn't have the know-how to get there, so I took a job with them.
So you always wanted to move away from retail?
Yes.
What's the reason for that?
I'm a lot better at production than retail sales. I do a lot better with a small team, bringing up morale and having them work nice, than sitting in a showroom and having walk-ins come in. That wasn't my cup of tea.
But it's a whole different style, the B2C versus the B2B, where you're dealing with one person who's going to be buying a whole bunch off of you. So you get to have, lower volume of customers but higher ticket per customer.
Yes, I much rather have 100 customers giving me 1,000 jobs than 1,000 customers giving me 1,000 jobs.
Basically, yeah.
Yes.
Fine. So you were working at that place, and then how long were you there for?
I started there in 2017.
Straight through Corona.
Right. Well, the years before Corona were tremendous years for that business. They've been in business for 7 years at that point as well.
But you went in as an employee.
Went in as an employee, but a managerial, I guess you would say, position. The first year that I was there, we doubled, or almost doubled, our revenue.
Wow.
The year after that, we did another 30%. The year after that, we did another 20%. So we had a pretty good 3 years for the 3 years that I was there. And then COVID hit. And then I decided it was time for me to take my experience and use it on myself rather than on other people. So that's what I did. Move. That's what I did.
Keep your wins.
Keep your wins, exactly. And losses.
How did that look?
I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, nitty and gritty details, what led to it. But
I'll push for details if there's something
If there's something. But the short story was, there's not that much room to grow when somebody else is trying to grow themselves off of your back.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning, if you are running a company, whether it's big or small, whether it has 10 employees or 50 employees or 100 employees, and there's somebody else that is controlling and pushing the buttons behind you, there's not really a lot of room for you to grow, because you're already at the top and you're not getting any higher unless you take over.
Oh, I get it. So basically, if you wanted to really grow a company, it had to be your company.
It had to be my own.
Because it was a small enough company that you were already holding at the top. There was nowhere on the ladder to climb.
No way for me to climb.
You're at the top rung, or the second to top rung. And in order to actually go anywhere, you had to be at the top rung.
Correct. And if I wanted a partner, but I didn't want a partner.
What's your thoughts on starting out with a partnership?
With a partnership, I personally, not the biggest fan of working partners. Usually things go south eventually, whether it's in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. But it is definitely a stepping stone. It's a way for people to start where they normally wouldn't be able to.
So if someone, let's say, wanted to start out in a business and it's, more accessible and easier for them to start out in a partnership, what advice would you give them? Would you strongly advise them against it, and try and come up with some other way?
If they could do it without a partner, I would strongly advise against it. If they can't, I would strongly advise for it.
Okay. What are some tips that you would give someone in how they can actually go about doing something without a partnership if they feel limited?
I would say most people don't go for it because they're scared of it. I think everybody could go for it. Anybody has it in them. It's just a matter of whether or not they're willing to put in the sweat and tears.
So part of the idea of a partnership is that you're sharing the risk. You're not
Correct.
just sharing the work.
You're sharing the risk and you're also sharing the rewards.
But if you're willing to take on all the risk and you have the capital to do it, then you're much better off delegating. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yes.
I want to hear from you.
Kind of. It's not just the risk, it's also the workload. Because technically when you have a partner, you also have a free employee.
Right.
Especially when if you're young and starting off
with high equity share.
With high equity share, yes. But a startup doesn't have equity, so so it's an equity share of 0, but it could potentially bring them to a point where that equity is worth something. In that case, a partner could be worthwhile for sure.
Right. So what happened next? You left this company, and you knew at this point that you wanted to own your own business. No
Yes.
partnerships, that didn't work out. No employeeship, that didn't work out. I want to be on my own. So what was the first step that you took?
Well, my first step was searching for opportunities.
Before that, actually, when you left that job, did you already have something lined up, or you were like, I am out and I'll figure it out after?
No. I sorta, kinda.
Sorta, kinda, maybe.
I definitely, as during the process that I was, considering leaving, I came across a much smaller print shop. It was during COVID. They weren't making any income. They'd been closed for over a year. The owner was getting old. He was trying to retire. So he was selling all the equipment and the setup as is. I took it as a sign that here it is. There's a setup ready to go. I could leave this job tomorrow and start printing in this other place. So I definitely jumped on that opportunity.
So you jumped from ship to ship?
Yes. I mean, there was a small gap in between, a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
But you knew where you were going when you jumped out.
For the most part, I had plans. I didn't obviously know everything. There was a 3 week gap in between leaving the one job and starting the next. But everything fell into place. Thankfully, I was able to secure the funding. We bought out the equipment and we started printing. And at that point, it was just an uphill battle.
Uphill battle. So you basically started out this business already with employees that were already in the business when you bought it, correct?
They had 2 employees. There was owner operated, so they had about 4 people working there when they were working. When I bought the facility, 2 of the employees stayed on with me.
So you had the choice when you bought it to keep the employees or not, or you had to do it in contract?
It wasn't a traditional business sale because I didn't buy his business. I didn't buy a customer list. I didn't buy any of his books.
You bought his equipment?
I just bought his equipment. And
not even the branding?
Correct. Not even his business name. Not of the phone number. Nothing.
He didn't coincidentally have the name Miz.
No. Yes, I just bought his equipment and I took over the lease on the building that he was in. So it kind of was a turnkey business without customers.
Interesting. So it's like an untraditional business purchase where you bought
Correct.
the kind of like the assets, but not the actual
the assets,
entire entity.
and the employees. I had to sit down with them and see if they wanted to stay on even, because they don't know who I am. But thankfully they did want, and they're still with me today.
Amazing.
The ones that were started off with.
Those are the best, the ones that start off with you, usually, not always. So fine, so the next step, so you now bought this business, and this is 2020, when was this?
2021.
2021, okay. So what were the first steps that you did to build this up?
Getting on the phone and bombing everybody I know, try and get their work.
You were really starting from nothing.
Yes, but nothing and something at the same time, since I've already at that point had over 10 years of experience and contacts. So I did have some clients, but obviously, I had dreams and hopes, and I had, people do a business plan. I more had a business wish list. I thought I would come in and everybody would follow me, and everybody would give me their work and throw money at me. But that wasn't the case. That was not the case. People don't trust so quickly, even though they know you for 100 years.
Right.
They don't just take their business and jump on ship with you. It was definitely a lot bigger of a battle than I expected it to be, to get things moving.
How did that look in the beginning? Meaning like those first few customers that like they, you landed them, but they didn't fully trust you. Like what was the experience like?
Well, to me, it was just exciting. Any customer that was willing to even give me a chance on a single purchase order, I knew that I had them in the bag already, because, once they see that,
you know what you're doing,
this is the customer service and this is the product that they've been used to.
They saw the level of service that you were giving them.
Any customers that I've worked with in the past that eventually gave me a shot again in my new company, it was just a matter of getting that first order. Obviously, they weren't trusting me right away. They weren't throwing at me all their orders, all their work. It was just a matter of me getting their first order.
And once you had that first
order, I got that first order, and they realized this is what we're used to, this is what we've missed, then I knew I didn't have to work as hard to get the rest. I just had to be consistent.
The idea is that if you show good quality work, they're going to keep coming back. And in your case, it was even more than that. It was they've already experienced the quality that you give them, quality of work and quality of service, and you're reminding them, hey, this was me and I'm back in town.
It's a little bit also knowing who the customers are, because obviously every customer is different. Every customer likes to be catered differently. Some customer wants you to be on the phone with them for 20 minutes at 6 p.m. listening to their story. Another customer doesn't want you to talk to them at all. They just want the order shipped on time.
Don't involve me. Just get it done.
They want to move on to the next job. So every customer is different, and you got to be able to cater to them at the way they want it.
When was that point where you felt like, okay, I experienced a breakthrough and we're growing, we're going in?
I don't think there was necessarily a breakthrough.
Slow and gradual.
It was more of a gradual climb. And at some point, I think it was maybe 6 months in, I realized, okay, I can't do sales anymore because we maximized our capacity. So at that point, I had to start focusing on growth rather than sales, growing the business from within rather than the outside sales.
You already built a trust and clientele, and now you need to be able to match that production level.
Well, to grow production level so we could take on more clientele, because we couldn't grow at that point. And obviously I bought out a very small operation. There was a lot of growing to do.
and at that point in time, you had, how many people were working for you? Still those two?
We slowly added. By the time the first year was over, we were 6 people. Now we are 10 people.
All right, 10. Just pulled someone in 2 weeks ago.
Just pulled someone in, yes. Literally.
Is that 10 including you or 10?
Not including me.
Not including you. You have a lot of systems set up, and I know because I visited your factory on Friday. Tell me about the systems that you've set up.
We have a order management system, kind of a CRM.
Sort of? What does that mean?
Because it's really not a CRM. It's more of an order production management system that we pay for, that helps us, organize and track the order processes and the customers and stuff like that.
It's not something you've built. It's something that you use.
No, we pay for. Okay. We customized it to work the way we like to work, but no, we definitely pay for it monthly. That's really the main system that we use to follow through every order and every step of the way, because obviously every order is unique, every order is custom. So we do have to babysit every order. So we have a system for that. Everything else is more of a process based because we're production and not a sales company. So for that, I mean, we kind of just use our experience in creating systems and following through. It's a lot of trial and error that we've had to do and we're still doing, because as we grow, there's always new challenges and new things that come into play. And I don't necessarily have access to other people's systems or print shops, so I kind of we kind of make it work as we go.
Well, you had experience.
I've had obviously this whole thing wasn't I didn't just decide 2 years ago to go into the screen printing industry and go all in and invest everything I have and jump into it.
Or you went in with a lot of
I came in with 10 years of experience, and we built on that.
Awesome. So what are some challenges that you've experienced in this journey? And when I say in this journey, I even in the last 10 years, but more specifically the last 2 years, but also in the last 10 years.
Challenges. What challenges did we not experience?
Let's get some examples. I want to hear how you dealt with them.
So why don't you give an example, and I'll tell you how I dealt with them.
Okay.
Because every day is a challenge.
Challenges in hiring, let's say.
I would say that's one of the bigger challenges, which thankfully we've been blessed, and we have a fantastic team.
I was about to say, this is a good time to give your team a shout out.
Definitely. We have a great team, and if somebody walks into the warehouse, it shows by how happy they are. You could see, you hear the music blasting, you could see the smiles on their faces as they even when they're working hard. It says a lot about them, and thank God we've been blessed with that. Sometimes it's hard to get the right people, but when you get them, it's worth everything.
Right. So I assume if you've had some bad hires, how did those work out? It's just an assumption. It could be everyone worked out perfectly.
It's tough. Every situation is unique, and every person is unique, and that's how they have to be treated. I can't pinpoint exactly how to handle or how I did handle even. We pushed through, and unfortunately sometimes you have to filter out the bad so you could keep the rest good.
The bad apples. What's your vetting process for hiring?
If you want to work, you have a job.
And then you see how they perform.
Everybody performs if they're happy. It's a matter of keeping them happy.
So you believe you could take anyone that has some level of work ethic, and as long as you keep them happy, they're going to do great work for you?
Work ethic is all I look for. It's the only thing. I don't care if they have any kind of background. I don't care if they sat in prison. I don't care. If they have a good work ethic, if they have a happy personality, we can make it work.
Wow.
Because I'm about making the employees happy, and the employees in turn make my customers happy, and then I'm happy.
And we're all happy. What's an example of like one royal mess up that made you really nervous, and how you dealt with it?
I mean, I embrace the mess ups. Like, I know my employees, they don't. Every time there's a messed up job, like, my employees feel super bad because they know that now it's costing me out $1,000, $2,000, whatever it might be, to replace the job or whatnot. But I embrace it because this is how we learn. We don't learn if we don't make mistakes. And some people pay for 4 years of college. I pay for making mistakes.
Yeah, no, I said something similar to that in my journey, where when I would purchase something that was unnecessary or whatever, I'll do something that cost me money. I'm like, listen, people pay for 4 years of college. This is my college. These mistakes are my college.
No, definitely mistakes are very important. Obviously, the smaller mistakes cost less and they give the same lesson. We always hope for the mistake to be small, so we could learn from it. But when the mistake is big, we cry a little bit and we move on.
Right. I mean, I think the bigger mistakes give a bigger lesson in a sense that it has more weight. It affects you more. So
yes, for me, yes, but for the employee, really, because I'm not on the floor always necessarily. I'm not the one making the mistake, even though I take the responsibility for it. I'm not the one that necessarily needs to learn. I just need to teach. So they don't know whether this mistake costed me $100 or $5,000. They just know a mistake happened. We go through how it happened, and we go through different scenarios, how what we would have done differently, how it could not happen. Sometimes it's just a matter of neglect by an employee. They're tired, they didn't pay attention, they did something, so it's just a matter of them needing to focus a little bit better. But sometimes we could adjust our systems and our processes a little bit better to make sure that it doesn't happen for the next guy.
So how do you deal with a situation when an employee or set of employees makes a mistake that costs you?
I smile and I tell them not to worry about it, because they do.
You don't tell them off?
Absolutely not. Never. I would never yell at an employee, ever.
Really?
Never.
Why is that? Why I'm saying if they messed up, you wouldn't want to tell them,
No,
set them straight.
Because you could either hire them or fire them. You can't expect them. You can't hire them and fire them at the same time. You can't hire somebody and be upset at them.
Right.
You have to be happy with them so they could be happy with you. And if they're happy with you, they're going to work harder.
That's incredible. So if you have an employee and you're holding on to this employee because they're doing good work for you, and they make a mistake, just be understanding and be relaxed about it. Don't freak out at them, unless you want to fire them. That's a different story.
That's a different story.
But if you're going to hold on to them as an employee, understand that they know they messed up, and there's no need to tell them off.
At the end of the day, nobody wants to go home feeling like they did something bad. Nobody wants to go home at the end of the day thinking that they ruined something. They want to go home feeling accomplished, that they did good at work. And when they mess up, whether it's small or big, you don't want them feeling bad about their day just because they messed up, because they're already feeling bad. If they're not feeling bad, they shouldn't be there. If they're not feeling bad, that's when you fire them. You don't get upset at them.
Right. So you need to fix them up instead of pushing them deeper down.
Right. Because at the end of the day, the employees want to do good. And if you allow them to do good, then they'll continue doing good.
Awesome. So how do you market yourself?
I don't. I've never marketed myself. It was more of a targeted cold calls that got me where I am. And
is it something that you want to do at some point?
Marketing?
Well, just to differentiate marketing from advertising, marketing is having your presence, set up where it's the branding, the having a website that very
absolutely. So we worked on that when we've been working on that. We recently got our website up a few months ago. And
also marketing would be social media marketing. Advertising, I would say, is when you're paying for your.
I don't do social media because it's very hard for me to advertise the jobs that I do, because since I do them at wholesale, it's not necessarily my jobs to advertise as my own. We are just a middleman. We're just printers. We don't sell the jobs necessarily. Obviously, we have the website, which is bringing some awareness. Our goal for 2023 is to get us established in some trade specific shows, which will put ourselves in front of hundreds or thousands of potential customers that are in the industry already. So we definitely don't want to put ourselves in front of the mom and pops, but we want to put ourselves in front of the industry.
Trade shows, cool. What are some things that you wish you knew when you started out, that you wish you can tell yourself when you started out?
That I wish I could tell myself when I started out.
Meaning that you know now, but you didn't know then, and it would have helped you tremendously if you would have known.
Well, I kind of feel like the whole journey getting here, if I didn't experience the things that I did, I would not know what I know now. So if I knew what I know now, then it wouldn't necessarily help me grow, because I would be skipping all the experience, all the failures. And you can't succeed without failure.
How so?
If you don't know what it's like to fail, you don't know what it's like to succeed. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. The failures are they're the biggest lessons.
You mean that until you fail, you haven't really succeeded because you haven't seen what the opposite of success looks like. So it's just that just means that you haven't been in a situation where you'd see anything other than success.
Well, I suppose you could succeed without failure. I mean, if you win the lottery and then you invest in something and it blows up, you know, that could be success without failure.
No, but I think what you're saying in that scenario, that's not really success. That's luck.
I suppose.
Success is failing, making the mistakes, and then making sure you don't make them again.
Correct.
I'm based on what you're saying, and I think it resonates with me.
To me, it's the small wins, because success is something that every person looks at differently. You know, one person will look at, you know, a business owner and say, hey, he's a successful business owner. He's got all these employees. He's got, you know, he makes all this money, but they don't know really what's going on. To me, a success could be, you know, just getting through the day sometimes, or sometimes just, you know, landing, you know, one customer that you've been working on for the last couple months, or that, you know, the little successes to me is what keeps me going. Or even finishing a job on time that I thought there was no way I could finish it on time, and I'm going to disappoint my customer because I'm going to miss their deadline or whatever, and by some miracle we get it out, and that's to me a tremendous success, because now we got through this, and now I know we could get through another one, because now I know how to plan better for the next time we get the same challenge.
Right. But so you're defining short-term success.
Correct.
Whereas the bigger business goals are more the long-term success.
Yes, but I don't necessarily have a plan for long-term success right now. I like the short-term successes, and it keeps me moving forward. Obviously we do have a vision, but not a plan.
You believe that it's not integral to have a whole plan written out, as long as you know what your vision is, and you could just take baby steps and see where it leads you.
It depends. It depends on the person. It depends on the business. For me, since I am the business, then I kind of follow my gut, and the vision could you know, change over the years. So far, we've been following the path, and the vision hasn't changed since we started. So we're obviously doing the right things and going in the right direction. But definitely the vision could change.
It's interesting, because it's like I would think it's more the unpopular opinion.
I would say it is more the unpopular opinion, because most
do you
people...
Do you see an advantage though in writing up a business plan, or you think
yes.
you see the advantage in it, but you don't feel it's necessary?
No, it is necessary. I realize that I'm going the untraditional way, but
that's what works for you.
That's what works for me. I know that this is what I'm doing, regardless of what some business coach will tell me.
I do see an advantage in doing it your way, by the way. I see an advantage in not going the business plan writing route, even though it's the unpopular route, or the unpopular for coaches, meaning
right,
as in like most people do that, but it's not the route that is recommended. But I see the advantage in it, where in a person where they're kind of like figuring out their branding, and you can't write a plan unless you know which direction you're going exactly. So you have your vision, but you're not exactly sure where you want to go with it. So you're taking it, and as long as it's, my opinion on a successful business at the baseline is if it's paying your salary and not and at least breaking even. So obviously, in order to have sustainable long-term success, it needs to be a lot more than breaking even. But,
of course.
But if the business is paying your salary and not losing money, and it can sustain itself that way for the next 70 years. In theory, that's success. At the very base of success, but to me that's the.
Well, more than that, you also have to sustain your growth, and growth is expensive. So
growth is expensive.
Growth is very expensive. So I mean, thankfully, we've been able to finance our growth so far, and we're looking forward to growing, even more in the next couple of years. It's more of creating an environment rather than creating a business, because I want to create an environment within the business that the employees come to work happy and leave work happy. And in return, nothing else really matters, because automatically the employees will give you their, as close to 100% as they could. And the customers will see that and will keep providing you with the work to succeed. So I started with that theory, and I'm continuing with that theory, and so far it hasn't proven me wrong. Obviously a good business plan is ideal for most businesses, but from my experience, business plans very rarely pan out to follow the same route that they're written out, that they start off with.
I hear that. I guess it really depends on how close you adhere to the plan, step by step.
Even if they do,
Well,
there's variables that no business coach could see in the future.
I'm a firm believer in that there's no one way to run a business.
Oh, for sure.
And while a business plan is something that is the popular approach, or what I was saying before, the popularly suggested approach, it doesn't work for everyone, and I do see the value in sort of like taking it as you go, as long as it's working.
For me, it wouldn't work. For some people, it would. I'm a hard head, and I just do what I want to do anyway. So I kind of know what the business needs or what the industry needs, and I try to provide it the best I can, and everything else follows.
And you ride the waves.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so let's jump topic. So what's some tips that you would give that anyone that's starting out in any industry, service-based industry?
Oh, you just go for it.
Just do it.
Just go for it. Business plan or not, if you love what you do, that's all that should matter. Give it your 100%. Go all in. Bang on people's doors. Don't take no for an answer. Just go for it.
That goes with one of my favorite lines, which I keep saying: start before you're ready.
Just go.
Being ready means building a business plan. Starting before you're ready means just start doing what you do and see where it goes.
You could build a business plan after you make money.
Exactly.
Just go for it. Bang on people's doors.
I like it.
Don't take no for an answer.
Well, I would put a footnote there, where if you're about to invest a huge amount of money, then maybe you should sit down with someone.
Service industry is generally our low cost to entry.
Usually, yeah, makes sense.
So because you're trading your time for money.
From being in the business for 2, but really 10 years plus, right? Because you've been working in other industries as well in the service industry. What are some things that you would tell people starting out? Things to avoid, tips to do and tips not to do.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to risk it. As long as you know that your heart is 100% in it, don't be afraid to fail. Embrace the failures, because that's the only way to success.
Don't be afraid to fall, and that's part of the growth.
Definitely be good to people. Treat your lowest employee the same as you would treat your equal, and they'll give you what you need.
Can you expound on that? I like that.
Treat your employees as people, as your equals. Even if you're janitor, your lowest paid employee should be treated the same as your highest paid employee, or vice versa. You want to treat everybody good, and they'll feel it, and they'll know it, and they'll realize that you're treating them as equals, and they'll give you equal in return.
Wow. So people give you, like, if not for wholesome reasons, even for selfish reasons, like if you treat people with respect, they're going to want to give you better. Whereas if you're just telling them off for every little thing and not respecting them, then they're just going to hate their job, and they're not going to want to do anything for you.
Correct. You'll never be able to delegate to someone that doesn't respect you, and they'll never respect you if you don't respect them. And it has to be genuine respect, obviously. It can't be just for show. You can't, tell them that you respect them or give them a nice word and then turn around and say something bad about them. You have to really be that.
Yeah.
Not act that.
Has to be real.
Yes. And it'll pay, and it'll show. And I say 90% of your success is reliant on your employees. So if you don't do that, your employees won't give you the success that you need. When you have that tight deadline, they won't stay the extra hour. They won't work that extra. They won't go the extra mile if you don't go the extra mile for them.
Right. Would you recommend this to everybody, or what kind of personality should be going out and venturing on their own versus staying as an employee?
I have no idea. There's personalities, I don't know. Everybody should be able to.
Anyone that has an interest in building their own empire can just
if you have the motivation to go out and do it on your own, go out and do it. Different personalities could work different to your advantage in every industry.
But if you're going to do it, do it.
If you fail, just step up and do it again.
What's something that you didn't know even existed as a potential issue or stumbling block that hits you hard and that you would want to save someone from that? Some people would say taxes, like meaning keeping books.
Taxes suck for sure. But
really, most people like taxes.
It's part of it. Yeah, you like to collect taxes, but then you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
No, they suck for sure, but it's part of it. You have to, I suppose, calculate it into your income. Otherwise, you're in for a big surprise at the end of the year. I suppose that's a good reason why to have a business plan. But
the first year that you start making money, that's when it hits.
Well,
you.
Ideally, you make money in the first year.
Not everyone does.
So ideally, you do. But if you don't make money for the first, most people can't sustain living more than a year without bringing in any income.
Well, people usually when they start a business, they start with some level of savings so they can sustain their own personal life.
Right, but most people can't have more than a year. If you're coming from the 9-to-5 workforce, that you're making every Friday you're taking in a paycheck and you're used to that lifestyle of money comes and then you're paying your bills and then money comes again and you pay your bills again. It's very hard to save enough to live for many years unless you're coming from very, very high paying jobs, which in that case you're starting off as buying a successful business because you already have the money. You don't need to be the startup.
Right. Or unless you have something that you really believe in so much that you're going to take out a loan.
Correct.
Because sometimes, like for example, in the printing business, I would say the machines that you were showing me cost insane amounts of money.
Correct.
So in order to really get into it, there is a big investment that you have to put in.
Correct. So we're different than most service industries since there's a high cost to entry. But we did it slow. In my case, I found an opportunity where I was able to buy something that will get me through the start. It was good enough and it didn't cost more than I could afford. Thankfully, we pushed forward and we used every penny that came in to buy more and buy more and buy more. And now we're still buying.
How do you determine when and how much to put back into the business versus how much to keep? Because you said you didn't take a salary for the first while.
For the first 2 years.
Wow.
If we're growing and we need it, we have to invest the money back in order to grow. Otherwise, we're going to hit a wall. And if we hit a wall, we could start losing. So in order to continue the growth or to keep up with the growth, we have to reinvest everything back in so we could keep up with our growth. Once the growth slows down, which eventually does in every business, because you get to a certain level where
plateau,
if you're not pushing to grow, you're not necessarily growing at any fast pace anyways. That's when you could decide, where do I put this money? Whether I put it in marketing or in equipment or in, expansion or just buy a Lambo or whatever.
Lambo's a good asset.
Definitely.
Makes you tons of money.
Good return, yeah.
Well, in one case, it could be an asset. Those people that want to be coaches on YouTube, so they want to get people to listen to them. So they'll rent a grounded jet, they'll just do the video with the jet in the background and get millions of views. What does it cost to rent a grounded jet for like 30 minutes?
I do not know.
Probably not that much.
No.
So what are some other tips you give to people that are in the journey of building a business?
It's always a good idea to find another business owner to fall back on, to ask questions, and to somebody that's been through what you're just doing, and to just mentor. Yeah, that would be the right word. To bounce things off of, to give you, or even just to give you the motivation to tell you could do this, go for it. Like, because it's very hard to tell yourself these things.
You need a big brother.
Yeah.
No, and also sometimes you'll have questions in the industry which, if you guessed it on your own, you're bound to make a huge error. Whereas
Correct.
you can just on a 1 minute phone call,
Right.
be saved from that.
Correct. It doesn't even have to be in the same industry. Just a business owner that's been through what you're going through now. Doesn't even have to be at all in the same industry. It could become something completely different, but every business essentially is the same as far as
Buying and selling oranges.
Exactly.
And I would add to that, don't be shy. People love to help.
Oh, absolutely.
People reach out to me and they're all apologetic, like, oh, I'm sorry if I'm disturbing. And I honestly, I enjoy it. If I'm able to help, I enjoy being able to help, because I understand that 30 seconds of my time could save someone from,
or help them gain.
Yeah.
Not just save. It could be they don't need saving. They just they want to grow, and your 30-second advice could turn into their empire.
Exactly.
And they'll remember it.
Exactly. So, and what's the worst thing that could happen if you reach out to someone who's just super busy? Like,
They'll tell you no.
Yeah, either they'll tell you no, or they won't. Or they'll ghost you because they're busy but don't have their act together. But either way, you don't lose anything from it. Whereas the potential to gain by just reaching out to someone who's there is huge. I like that one.
Definitely reach out to someone. It's a big thing. I mean, every business owner will tell you they always had, not always, but at least in the beginning, they had somebody that they could bounce an idea off of.
So how do you find your work-life balance? Because when you're running a company, it takes a lot out of you. So how do you balance all that with life?
It's a little bit easier now that I have enough employees to kind of handle majority of the workload.
I mean, we're here at 10:30 a.m. and having this conversation with a coffee.
Yeah, it must be nice. That's what some people would say. But it's definitely a lot easier now. But in the beginning, startup, there is no work-life balance. There's just work. You have to put
no life, no balance.
you have to put work first, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And you can't hire 1 million people while you're growing, because then you can't afford to grow.
Right.
So definitely, I would say it's very, very difficult in the beginning. If you have a family, it's harder. If you're single, it's easier.
The key is really to start out when you're single.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah, but not everybody has that. But I think the main thing to know is that it doesn't last forever. That startup phase, it doesn't last forever, and eventually you learn to delegate more and more and more, and to take off some of those hats that you've been wearing, and they get pretty heavy on the head. And the longer you do it, the more you learn to delegate more, and the easier it gets to take that step back and to focus on the things that you really are good at, and the things that you really are more motivated to do, and delegate the rest of it so it's not on your shoulders. And whether it's doing the things that are only required to do between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., or whether it's to do the things that just you're more passionate about.
Right.
So since you're the owner, you could choose.
So in terms of like the family life or personal life, health, whatever it is, mental health, are there ground rules that you set for yourself? Like let's say from 5 to 6, my phone's off, like that kind of stuff. Do you do any of that or?
Not necessarily. It's not that I have. My phone doesn't ring all day. It doesn't ring off the hook. So it's not like I'm super busy as far like between 5 to 6 p.m. It's not so relevant to me. Some people, they're especially in the retail service industry, when you're dealing with
For B2Cs, they're usually more busy.
right, you're dealing with thousands of customers, and every little tiny project could have, you know, anywhere between 1 and 10 phone calls or emails for that matter. I don't really have all that because we work with lower margins, higher volume, and we're just the middleman. Definitely, it's important if you do have that busyness.
Yeah.
Because it could take a lot from you mentally.
So you have a lot of friends that are in the business of building a business.
Friends?
And acquaintances. What are some mistakes that you see people making when they're growing, when they're starting a business?
I don't necessarily see mistakes. I see
The
people
outcome.
that are afraid. And when you're afraid to risk, you'll never get to where you want to be. So a lot of people take on the path of having somebody else risk it for them, and then majority of those end up losing, and the investor loses and they lose. The people that succeed are generally the people that risk themselves.
So when you're afraid to risk, you're giving yourself something to be afraid of, because by being afraid to risk, you're not going all in, and then it ends up failing.
You end up like never getting to where you want to be because you didn't take that step that you should have taken.
A great example is when I first tried to ride a bicycle down steps, and I was like, I'm gonna play this one safe. I'm gonna go slowly.
Oh, you go over the bars.
No, so I'm like, I'm gonna go slowly. So I was going slowly, and it ended up pretty badly. I ended up like bumping down the steps and losing because I couldn't stand over there.
Right.
And the idea is that the way you do it is actually by going fast.
Yeah.
And it's the only way to do it.
You can't use the brakes.
And because I was afraid to take that risk of going fast, because to me that felt like a risk.
You risked more.
And I did what I thought was safer, and that was my fail.
Yeah, a good example is somebody that's afraid of heights. If you stand on a piece of plywood or a piece of 2x4 that's sitting on the floor over here, you could stand on it for 10 minutes straight. You could walk back and forth and stay on it. But
Right.
if it's elevated 100 feet in the air, you'll fall 100% guaranteed. Because you lose your balance by being afraid.
Yeah, no, that's a good example.
To
So if you're afraid to take risks, now obviously risks need to be calculated, but if you're
For
afraid
sure.
to jump off the cliff, then this could be a bit of a controversial thing to say, because sometimes people take risks that are uncalculated, and then that's their downfall.
Well, obviously,
So-
it has to make sense to you. Like if you're opened a business, or if you started a business, you obviously have faith in yourself because you are the business. Especially in the service industry, you are the business. If you started a business and you're not going all in, then you're never going to get to where you want to be. Because nobody else is going to do it for you. I mean, you could hire all the coaches in the world. They won't get you there because you are the one that has to do it.
the buck stops by you in the
Right.
beginning.
But if you because you started it because you believe in yourself. You started it because this is what you want to do. You started it because this is who you are. So if you don't believe that that's who you are, you shouldn't be doing it. If you
Right.
do it all the way. And you'll succeed if you do it all the way.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much for coming on here,
Yeah, thank you.
Josh Mizrahi. If anyone is looking to get some sort of promo printing, how would they find you?
MizPromos.com.
That's it. MIZpromos.com.
Correct.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you very much for joining. This has been Solo to CEO, and I'll see you in the next one.